Okay, we're going to talk about the scene editor within Vizrt T5, and the scene editor is this window right up here in the middle. It's labeled scene editor. We have several scene editor buttons on the side, and we have a timeline control that runs along the bottom. The scene editor has a lot of useful functions that lets the designer see how graphics look, not only when designing but when keyed or when viewed from different angles or repositioned on screen. We also can access the performance meter and several options while in the scene editor. And the way that this works, we're just going to start by dragging a cube or any object within our scene tree, and we're going to see any real-time changes that we make within this scene. Now, it is important to note which render mode you are in, Classic and or Viz Renderer. There will be slight variations between the two. First, we're going to go into the Classic mode, and I'm going to click on my little plus sign here. I'm just going to add a material here so that we can see this a little bit better. And within the Classic mode, we can use the Classic materials. So I can drop that onto the container and then change the color here. As I mentioned, you can do real-time updates and changes, and it will show you within the scene editor window. So for instance, if I create an animation here, I will move my cube just to the right and to the left. We'll set a keyframe, and you hit play, and you see the real-time animation. That's one of the main advantages of the scene editor window. So first, when I work within the scene editor, I like to turn the bounding box on, and when we do that, we get handles around the container that is highlighted. So essentially, your bounding box will show you which object has been selected within your scene tree. Now, we only have one container in here, but if we were to copy this container, and I'm going to move it up into the upper corner, and within the scene we can actually work within the scene as opposed to using the transformation axis editor. So if I wanted to select the new object within our scene editor, I could just left click with the mouse and select it. Now by default I can just come in here and drag it around with my left mouse button. If you want to unselect that particular object, you can just hit your space bar and that will unselect it within the scene editor. Now we can also copy objects, so if you want to copy this one, you can again hold down Control, click with your left mouse button, and just drag. If you wanted to select multiple containers within your scene editor, you just hold down Control and left click, and now that will select all the containers that you clicked on. What's more, if you have your bounding box on, it will also show you and expand the bounding box to show you which all the containers or groups that you have selected. Now, since we are in Classic mode, which render mode you're using will have an effect on the scene editor window. And the big effect is on the scene editor context menu. So if I select this object by left clicking and then right clicking, I have different options here for parameters that I can adjust. And I just need to roll my mouse over this to highlight which parameter I want. In this case, I want the position. And then we can let go, and that parameter is now active. And we have our Y position, which is in green. We have a X position, which is in red. And there is a Z position, which is in blue. Hard to see, I know. So we can take this and just drag this around any position that we want. What's more, we can just grab the handles here on that particular axis, and it will just allow you to move it on that axis. So if we just want the X, we can just grab that red handle right there. If we want to move it freely, we can just click anywhere and move it freely. If we right click again, we also have the option for rotation, and again we have these handles here, so depending which way you want to rotate it, you can just grab the handle and rotate it that way as well. We also have a scale. It's going to work the same way. You can grab your different edges here, so if we just want to make it longer on the Z or the X path, we can just grab 1 or 2 points and adjust that how we want. If we right click again, we have the option for our center point, so we can adjust our center point too. And again, you can see as we grab the handle here how the center point moves. All of these options are the same as you'll find over here in the transformation axis editor. When we right click again and we go into our other option called space, it gives us 3 more options. We have a parent, a local, and a world. And this switches between our coordinate system, which relates to the parent, local, and world within our transformation editor. If we right click again, there's also a properties, so we can also hide this. And you can see over here in the scene tree that it hides it. We can turn that back on with the eyeball. We can then go back into properties. There is a lock right here, and we lock it, and you can see it corresponds over here within our scene tree container. Now, if it's locked, we can no longer click and drag this. We could still move it within our transformation axis editor, but we cannot move it within our scene editor because it is locked. If I right click again, I'll hit the unlock button, and now we can click it and start to drag that again. Furthermore, we have a transformation, so it brings up the transformation axis window. We have normal vertices. We have an on, which we can turn on or off. And this toggles the display of the normal vectors at the bottom of the properties. If we right click again, we have our geometry, which we could turn off right there. That will turn the entire cube off. We also have it that will turn the geometry off. If we want to get it back on, we can click over it within our transformation column here. If we right click again within this window, we also have the material, and it gives us the option for colored, and we can turn that off so that it is a flat color and it's no longer shaded. Again, if you just want to readjust that, you can come over to the transformation editor column and then click it off and then click it on, and it will reset it. Now I'm going to go ahead and close that scene, and we're going to jump into another scene. So we're going to open up a new 3D scene so that we can view this in the Viz Engine Renderer mode. So now within our scene editor window, we're now in Viz Engine Renderer, and you can see a change already in that we have this little icon down in the lower left. If we come up in our window and we double click on an object, we can right click again. And this time we have our options here, and you can see transform, and then we have translate. So we have an option for local, parent, or world. So we can switch it to world, and then we have little handles down here again that we can choose to move it. If I just want to go on the X, it's highlighting this orange, and then that indicates that I can move it left or right. If I roll my mouse over the Y, it turns orange, and now we can move it up or down. And then there is free move icon here where you can click right on that and do it both at the same time. If we right click again, we also have the rotate function, and we get this icon which we can roll our mouse over, and it gives us different options here. So once the color changes, so if I want to rotate this on the Y, you can see that it highlighted that color orange, and now it gives us the rotation amount while we're actually rotating it within the scene editor. If you want to do another axis, you could just highlight the other axis and rotate it that way, and again it gives us the rotation amount there as well. If we right click again, we have the option to scale. We have our three handles. We have our Z, we have our Y, we have our X, and if you want to do it together, you can kind of click on the free transform or free scale tool there and do it all together. We right click again. We also have our center option, so we can move our center point here, and this is obviously related to our left, center, right, bottom, center, top, back, center, front. Finally, while working within the scene editor, and if you are in the Viz Engine Renderer mode, it's quite possible that you'll be in the 3D environment quite a lot. So a way to view your scene editor rather than just through the cameras now, we can use this little icon down here to help us. So we're going to select on a particular object within our scene that we want to keep the camera focused on. So for instance, this cube, I want to keep the camera focused on that. I'm going to highlight it. I'm going to hit my T button. And now when I come down into this little icon here, I can start moving around my camera, and it shows us our 3D environment automatically. And by selecting T, it keeps the camera on the cube while we move it around. So we have our option here to move it on the X, we have our option here to move it on the Y, and you have your option to move it on the Z too. You can move it, highlight your mouse over the little handles here, and they will turn white. So doing it this mode is different than coming up and having to select different cameras and go into different views to see what you're actually designing. It's much easier this way to do it. So that's a brief overview of just what you can do within the scene editor window itself.